Red Faction Guerrilla, a game that's almost 10 years old now, has finally officially gotten its remaster, courtesy of THQ Nordic, or I suppose Re-Mars-tered, as the absolutely horrific pun in the title suggests. And, well, I suppose that THQ Nordic has a sort of capacity for those really bad puns, as they have shown in their other remastered titles, like the Darksiders 2 remaster, which is really good, by the way. And, well, I suppose here it is, and is it any good? The game is, as I mentioned, almost 10 years old. I believe it was released in 2009, the original Red Faction Guerrilla. And who asked for this, and do we need it? I guess are probably the questions that a lot of people are going to be, well, asking. And who asked for this is maybe not necessarily the question that a lot of people should ask for certain games that are getting remasters recently, because there are a certain subset of remasters that I think are actually pretty valid, that this is one of. This is sort of a member of the category, that are more for the kind of people that are, you see around forums and around probably Facebook posts and things, that you see in the category of people that are, say things like, who remembers this game? And they post screenshots of not super old, but kind of cult classic games that didn't get a huge following. And that gives an option for certain companies to say, actually, we remember that game. It was ours. Here it is now, actually. Play it again. And sort of release a remastered version. And I actually think that's kind of cool when companies do that. And it doesn't actually happen very often, but I think it's a really cool thing when it does. And that's basically what we've got here. We have a game that didn't get a hugely, I wouldn't say successful, it actually was fairly positively received, but a hugely large reception. It didn't get, like, massive, huge sales in the form of Red Faction Guerrilla that people still very fondly remember, at least the people that played it. And it's still mentioned often in circles that did play it because of its really cool destruction physics and its fairly interesting setting, being an open world on Mars, and it being part of a series that kind of died off, but was really interesting. The Red Faction series is pretty cool, but not all that well known comparatively. And so they remastered Red Faction Guerrilla and were like, here you go, have it again. So I thought that was kind of neat, actually, and I was fairly excited to see what the remaster had to offer, because I actually have some really fond memories of this game. I really, really enjoyed playing it back in the day, but I actually played it on 360. I didn't play the PC version because I didn't have a 360, or, wow, I didn't have a 360. I didn't have a PC that was up to snuff to actually play it at the time. And part of the point of the remaster is a lot of people didn't, because the PC version wasn't very good. I think a big portion of this remaster's validity isn't necessarily to make it look better, but it's to make it run better. Because the PC version of Red Faction Guerrilla wasn't very good, in my experience. Like I said, I didn't play the PC version very much because I didn't own it, but I had a friend that did. And from what I recall, the keyboard and mouse controls were sort of wonky. The key rebinding didn't work properly. Also, you can shoot yourself with a rocket on accident. And it just was sort of a bit crash prone, and it didn't run as well as it should. Part of that may have been down to the destruction physics, but another part of it was definitely down to the fact that it simply was just not as well optimized as it could have been in the PC version. And they were able to actually fix a lot of things for the remaster, and I think billing the remaster as just like a graphical upgrade for, new generation hardware is really kind of underselling what it really is, and that is a sort of refreshed version that actually works, which is really good, actually. It works really well. For instance, even simple things like the key rebinding menu having really nice dual key rebind settings for everything, separate from controller controls and all that, which isn't how I remember the rebind menu being, and I could very well be wrong because it's been a very long time since I actually tried it, is nice. And it actually running properly, even when the destruction gets really, really heavy, is also nice. It also runs at a proper 60 FPS at all times, and has been engineered to run at 120 and above, and I think caps out at something ridiculous, like 250 frames per second or something like that, so that's good. for those of you with, like, 144 hertz monitors and things like that, this will take advantage of that now. So the technical side of the game has been improved, not just the way that it looks. And the way that it looks has indeed been improved. You have 4K support now, which is also cool. The resolution options in this game are kind of absurd. Some of the resolutions that I scrolled through while trying to find 1920 by 1080, I've never even heard of. I didn't even know if those exist. I think half of them are actually made up, but they're there. And you can select them out of curiosity. And you've also got some pretty interesting things like, actually the fact that some of the texture work, I've seen people say that the improved texture work doesn't seem all that impressive, but I think maybe they're looking in the wrong place. Because generally speaking, remasters, when you think of the improved textures in a remaster, what you actually think of is the world textures, what I'm going to call these static textures, i.e., the ground, the mountains, things like that, things that don't move. Just the environment textures. And in this case, those have been what I'd call touched up. They look a little better. They have been, like, denoisified, and they just look a little bit more detailed and slightly better. Nothing necessarily to write home about, but they do look better, less muddy, slightly more detailed, a little better here and there. You are on Mars, after all. It's fairly brown. Nothing super intense going on. Although Oasis and Eos do look a little better because of their more popping colors, with the greens and things like that. But I think really where a lot of the more prominent texture work has been done is actually where a lot of remasters don't touch all that much, which is what I would call the dynamic textures, i.e. things that move, like character models, weapon models, vehicles, and in this game, the buildings, because, of course, in this game, the buildings do move. And that's actually unusual, because, of course, usually those kinds of things actually stick out in remasters as looking still quite old. But they don't here. In fact, I remember very vividly a particular building that always stuck out to me as looking rusty. And a lot of the encampments, your faction encampments, it's a kind of cylindrical shaped building. It looks rusty. It's very, like, brown and rusty. But in the remaster, it is actually revealed to not have been a rusty texture at all. It turns out it's supposed to be a sort of desert-themed digital camo all along. That's actually what it's supposed to have looked like. And due to the increased texture resolution, you can actually tell now that that's what it's supposed to look like. And I found that kind of impressive, because I never would have known that before. So textures like that look better than before. I'm not going to say significantly better, necessarily, but I do think there is a visual difference that you can definitely tell. They do look better. So the dynamic textures of things that move have a visible difference, a visual improvement, which is nice, especially for those of you that are running the game at very high resolutions like the new 4K support. I'm sure that is a welcome improvement. But of course, the main draw of the game is stuff like this. The destruction, the just horrible things that you can do to the Martian people. Or, well, I suppose the EDF, really. The Martian people are the side that you're on, although you are the space asshole. And, well, this is what the game is really about, and yes, the destruction is very much intact. The destruction engine itself has not been changed, although it does benefit heavily from the increased stability and better frame rate. And of course, the fact that everything looks better means that it looks better coming to pieces as well. And being able to get in the power loader from Alien and bitch slap an APC is made all the better at a very stable 60 FPS with better controls. But yeah, the core gameplay is of course still intact. The package itself, when you actually buy this game, which I should mention is $20, it's $20, comes with the remaster as well as the original game, which I have to admit I do very much like. I appreciate when games don't replace the original executable or the original game with the improved version, because just because it's supposed to be an objective improvement does not mean it should replace the original. I would prefer to have both as separate executables, thank you very much. And this does come with both for $20, which is pretty cool. And the remaster, of course, does include the DLC. The Marauder-themed DLC with Samanya is in this as a package. You may also notice a lack of camera shake. That is an option they added. It is by default still on in the game, however, a recent patch added the ability to disable it, which I thought was awesome because I hated the camera shake in the original game. It added some impact to explosions, and that was nice and everything, but it got really, really obnoxious very quickly in sections with a lot of destruction happening, so I turned it off because it annoyed the crap out of me very easily. So I thought that was a really nice little quality of life improvement that they added. So yes, you can disable the camera shake now, thank the Lord. Some of the other patches that they have done have improved certain things, like changing some things about the matchmaking, because of course this remaster edition has revived the multiplayer. And if you've never played the Red Faction Guerrilla multiplayer, it is actually really, really fun. The matchmaking servers have been sort of restored and improved. The matchmaking process has been streamlined and sped up and stabilized. And they have improved the transition from map to map to be quicker, and they have added more options to that system in its entirety as well, so that's nice for people that do a lot of the multiplayer in this game. They've also added things like, what was it? They added the ability to switch maps faster, while also, like, maintaining the integrity of the lobby, basically, which is a really clumsy way to explain it because I can't remember exactly how they explained it in the patch notes, but basically it was a big annoying problem in the original matchmaking that they fixed, which was apparently a welcome change. I don't remember how it went because I never played a whole lot of the original multiplayer. It's been a long time since I've done it, but I remember it being very fun. And also, the smoke and fire and various explosion effects have also been changed because, of course, all those particle effects being their original resolution and stuff would be quite jarring up against the new textures. So yes, all those have also been improved, and some of them, especially the colored ones, like in the various fuel tanks and stuff like that, are actually kind of pretty. They look nice, especially the embers and things they leave behind. It's still an older game, so they're not going to be like massively impressive or anything, but they look nice. And of course, really it's not about looking good, it's just about being very satisfying because of the huge amount of destruction you're causing, and they do that, they slot into that effect. So, is this worth it? Well, first of all, if you're one of those do you remember this game that I really liked from back in '09 people, you actually own this already, because they gave this out to everyone who owns the original Red Faction Guerrilla on PC for free, which is quite generous in my opinion, and it's how you should do a remaster from software. Thank you very much. But really though, yeah, they gave this out to everyone for free if you already own the original Red Faction Guerrilla, which is, you know, I mean, let's be honest, that's just straight up how a remaster should be done. If you have the game already, you should either get a very deep discount on the remaster, or you should just get the remaster for free because you already bought the thing. Not only that, but for its launch week, roughly, launch 5 days, launch period, they also sold the remaster for only $10. And that also, of course, included the original Red Faction Guerrilla, so they sold it for half off, which was, again, quite generous. And now, of course, it's $20, but that was, you know, that was a good move by them, I think. They had a lot of goodwill generation by doing it that way, by showing that they weren't, I suppose, necessarily trying to generate a crapload of money from this. They just wanted to remaster an older game, not that old, but older, and that people liked, and that they know people liked, and try and generate some positive spin for it. And of course, things like this, all the Demolition Master missions, I had to show a couple of them because they were really fun. And I remember some of them and how to do them, and some of them I don't remember, like this one, so I screwed it up a couple of times. I just wanted to show a couple of them to show some of the smaller scale destruction, you know, the on-foot stuff, and how enjoyable it was, and how even the smaller scale stuff is still just really enjoyable because you can see things come apart in a very detailed way, and how fun that was. But it's just one of those games that I think a lot of us very fondly remember. A lot of us that played it because of the very unique gimmick of its destruction engine being just tons of fun. It was a kind of bog standard third-person shooter in a lot of other ways, but that destruction and some of the vehicles you got to do, and the fact that you were on Mars and things like that, the vehicles you got to drive, it made for a pretty interesting game overall. And seeing it remastered and very easily playable on on higher resolutions and at better frame rates and things like that is very nice, and for only 20 bucks, it's honestly kind of hard to pass up. So yeah, I would say that it's worth it, if only to have a more easily accessible, more modern version to screw around in, because any excuse to replay this game is an excuse I'll take, and $20 is not a big ask for that, to be totally honest with you, at least not to me. Although I got it for 10. But yeah, it's hard to say no to Red Faction Guerrilla whenever it comes along. I've got to say. I mean, come on, look at that. It's just so fun to watch buildings just peel apart like that. But yeah, $20. So if you do want to check out the game, it is of course in the description below this video. If you want to remember what it's like to do all this yourself. And of course, do remember that if you owned this game prior, check your library, because you now own this version as well for free. And did they do this because they want to revive the series? I mean, who knows? It's entirely possible, yeah. They might be trying to bring Red Faction back. I mean, they've done that before. That's basically what they did with Darksiders, and now Darksiders 3 has a release date of later this year. Hype, by the way. So, I mean, yeah, that's very much possible. I would love a new Red Faction game. I would have loved to have seen them do a little bit more with this. I would have loved to have seen them bring the DLC Marauder weapons into the main campaign. I would have loved to have seen them do things that I don't necessarily think are possible, like bring some of the things like the magnet gun and the black hole gun from Red Faction Armageddon into this remaster. I don't know if that's even physically possible, because that may have required them to rebuild the engine. And obviously that's not something you do in a remaster, that's more remake territory. But honestly, I would love to see THQ Nordic get a reputation for being the guys that basically do remasters in kind of a silly way, because let's be honest, remasters are becoming very common nowadays, and that's fine. They're, you know, you don't have to buy them if you don't want them. But if companies are going to be doing remasters more often, then I think every company needs to have their sort of theme, you know? Everyone does remasters slightly differently. And I think that THQ Nordic needs to sort of become the company that puts not just a pretty good amount of effort into their remasters, which they do, because they don't just make them look good, they also put a lot of technical effort to make them run better and have better controls and things like that, which they usually do. But maybe they add some features that people didn't necessarily expect, or that people wanted back then. They listened to the feedback that existed back at the time that that game was popular. Maybe they troll some message boards or something from back then, and look at the most common requests and add that stuff now that they actually have the opportunity, because it's a remaster, they can do that now. And one of the most common requests from this game back then was, man, I wish they could have added the Marauder weapons from the DLC into the campaign of the main game. So it would have been kind of cool if they actually took the time to do that for the remaster, because they actually had a chance to. And maybe, you know, add some silly stuff that people didn't expect, like, say, trying to get the magnet gun and the plasma beam and the black hole gun from Red Faction Armageddon into this game in some way. That would have been absolutely amazing. I don't know if that's even possible, like I said, so I'm not going to expect it too hard, because I'm not sure if that's physically possible for them to do. But man, some stuff like that, if THQ Nordic actually got the reputation for making remasters with that sort of level of content, I think that would be the perfect reputation for them to have, and I would love to see that sort of thing go on. But anyway, yeah, that's Red Faction Guerrilla Re-Mars-tered. Absolutely terrible pun, but we deal with it. We forgive them for the quality of what they put out. And I think it's absolutely worth your time, actually, because the game itself is a ton of fun, and being able to experience it again with a little bit of extra shininess and, you know, more convenient gameplay due to the better optimization, better controls, and better quality of life improvements that they've made so far, and are still continuing to work on, by the way, is a really, really nice thing. And I'm not going to turn it down. I'm definitely not going to say no. So, again, look in the description below if you want to check it out yourself. Any comments or questions, feel free to leave them, and thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time.